Good morning, everyone. Or good afternoon for those that are watching in other parts of the world. My name is Erick Silvermoon. I am so excited to have the honor of having the beautiful and awesome Kelly-Ann Maddox with the Four Queens. Thank you, Kelly, for being here. Do you like Kelly-Ann or just Kelly?
Kelly-Ann's good. Yeah, I like the whole thing. It's good.
Throw in the last name all at once, too.
Yeah, I do. Or just do what my boyfriend does and call me Maddox. That'd be fine.
Ooh, I like that. I actually like that, Maddox.
Yeah, it's good.
You're out Miss Maddox if you're nasty.
Yeah, it is really quite a powerful name, that Miss Maddox. I love it. Gorgeous.
It is. I love that. I'm gonna have to figure out well, no one really wants to. If someone calls me Garcia, then I know I'm in trouble. And so
yeah, exactly.
But anyway, back to the topic. I wanted to talk about today about art and a witch's perspective. I know that both Kelly-Ann and I, and many of the people that that follow us, have a very interesting perspective on art and how they view that, and how they, a lot of people receive their messages from their spiritual tribes, from different pieces of art. That's why people resonate with oracle cards and tarot cards. A lot of people don't receive their messages from what the illustrator wanted to portray. They just use that as a channel to get whatever information they want. And so many people really gravitate to certain aspects of it. I'm a very visual person, so I have to make sure that whatever I'm looking at, whatever I'm doing, it's very visually appealing. And some people want more of the symbolism, like they want to see more of the actual like elemental symbols, maybe some of the sigil work and stuff like that. So I mean, there's such a broad aspect of different art that we could tap into. And so for me personally, the art, and I was talking to Kelly-Ann a little bit earlier before we went live, I resonate a lot with darker characters, kind of like I'm gonna throw a couple names out for video games. I resonate like with Silent Hill, Resident Evil, Castlevania. I'm a zombie fanatic kind of person. I love video games. I love the superhero aspect. I'm even wearing my Zelda t-shirt, and I'm drinking out of my superhero cup.
Oh,
so I mean, I love that kind of character because it reminds me of my childhood, and it does help me with my inner child work. And so I feel that when I see art and I tap into my inner child, it allows my intuition to be raised a bit, because I think as children, we resonated very well with something, and we were able to be more aware of our surroundings. So having something like art to quickly just channel your inner child through something like either a reading or anything like that has been very beneficial for me. So I don't know, Kelly-Ann, how do you use art in your spiritual practice?
I love the way you said that it connects you with your intuition, because I think for me, one of the main ways that I started experimenting with art was in doing things like automatic drawing, to kind of gain signs or symbols, or to understand what the deeper layers of my psyche were telling me that I couldn't understand in any kind of linear or cognitive way. So I really love the use of art for that. So it did, in a very real way, help me to connect with my intuition, and also just to explore my psyche and my shadow side. I think a lot of people make art for that reason, with no real sense of where it's going or what it's supposed to look like, but actually just holding an emotion or a memory or an experience that you've had in mind, and then creating art and seeing where that goes, and then looking at the art afterwards and seeing what it's actually saying to you about yourself. So that, I think, is important in a kind of psycho-spiritual way. I've also tried creating images of deities, creating images of spirit guides. I've invented servitors or magical thought forms through drawing them or collaging them or painting them. So that's a pretty magical way to use art, I suppose you could say. And also with aesthetics, like you, I like things to be visually pleasing. So for me, like decorating altars, decorating books of shadows, doing that kind of stuff is important to me because it all adds to the overall feeling that you get when you're sat in front of it, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, it does. And I like how it kind of went, that you describe how different aspects, because even when we do decorate our altars and stuff like that, that's also representative of self-expression I mean, we set things up to make sure that it serves us in that moment. And normally we kind of channel something like, this is what I need, this is how I need it to look like, so that it allows me to self-express myself and heal the way that I need to heal. And then once you, because once you get what you need from it, you're like, I think I need to switch things up. I need to move things up. It's kind of stagnant. You know, what is it that I need? So it's interesting. Yeah, I never really saw that an altar as a kind of a self-expression kind of thing. So that's cool.
Yeah, I totally see it that way. And I like to use art for astral travel. And this is something that I've touched on in videos before, and I've been asked to explain it more fully. But I like to use art either as a doorway to the astral or as some kind of terrain to explore in an astral way. So I'll leave my physical body and I'll go and explore the terrain inside a painting. And I got this idea from being very young and watching Witches, the film Witches with Angelica Houston in it, where at the beginning of the film she sees the girl in the painting, and then at the end of the film the girl disappears. So when I was really young, I was like, I could explore paintings through like leaving my body and going into the painting. And now I'm 30 and I'm still doing that, but in a really practiced kind of way. So like I do that, and I love to use art as a doorway. So even if I'm not going to go necessarily into a certain piece of terrain, I could use, for example, a Mark Rothko painting in an Alice in Wonderland kind of way. So I will look at it, and I have looked at it. I've gone to the Rothko room in London and I've actually tripped out off of his painting. And I can get in there. I can go in there. I can leave my body and go into that hole and see what's in the other side kind of thing. But this is very heady and it's not for everybody, but I love to use art in that way.
I'm like shaking. I'm so excited you said that, because that is exactly how I learned how to kind of meditate and astral project in that sense with art, and it is with that movie, The Witches. When I saw that movie with Angelica Houston, I did the same thing. I would see a painting and put myself in it and see how far I could push myself and be like, what's around that corner? And then just put myself in the thing. Like if it was a little cottage, what's behind it? Is there animals? And push myself even further. And so that's pretty awesome. No one really.
That's so tricky.
That is true.
That's really cool.
That movie itself, I mean, it used to scare the shit out of me. We used to go to a lot of like traveling and stay in hotels. And as a kid, I was like, I don't want anybody turning me into a mouse. Where's the Grand High Witch? I would look at women and be like, Mom, there's a witch right there. She's like, stop it. That's offensive. And that comes with like pop culture and movies. I mean, there's a lot of movies that, you know, appeal us and inspire us to create works of art. Same thing with music. I mean, art doesn't necessarily have to be, you know, a painting. It could be spoken word. It could be written like poetry, you know, someone's journal. And so it's really cool. Do you channel? I know that you do some collage work. Did you want to talk about how do you prepare for that? Like, what do you do? What does that look like? With the collage work?
Well, I do it like I've made art in sacred space to see what happens, and that was really insane because I have a massive stack of magazines. I kind of vet them, so I keep about between 50 and 100 at a stretch in two massive stacks, and then 3 or 4 times a year I go through them and I decide what I want to keep and what I'm done with. And so I have created art in sacred space, which is really interesting. I've done automatic drawing in sacred space, but in terms of creating art to decorate stuff or to do e-zines or ebooks, like I'm doing an e-zine at the moment, I'm like creating it with collage. That will just be a case of I just like to get comfortable. I like to do it through the night if I can. I'll start in the evening and I'll stay awake all night because I'm a night owl and I'm a real carpe noctem kind of girl. So I'll watch interviews or listen to albums I haven't heard in ages, and it'll just be me and everybody else will be asleep, and it's just me and my glue and my scissors and my magazines, and it's like the best feeling ever. It's the best feeling ever to make art all night. That to me is like, I mean, I've traveled and had the same kind of feeling, because it is like traveling. It's like you never know what you're going to discover and what you can make out of it and what it's going to become. So yeah, I kind of just prepare by waiting for everybody to go to sleep, making sure that I've got like what I need in terms of food and like tea and just stuff, like interviews lined up and stuff. And then I just sit in my little room, and it's like my little domain. It's like my kingdom. I love it.
That's awesome. And one of your videos that you've done when you're sharing all of your different journals and Book of Shadows, and that's the stuff that I want to find, like in someone's like Book of Shadows, like back in the day. That's how I want it, because it looks lived in. It looks like it doesn't even have to be like, you know, someone's magical practice technically, but it's life experiences in there, and the way that you like very very detailed and very precise of how you want it to look like. I think I saw that there was like a photo and words just spiraled out of it, and then there's another thing where it has like different things if you tried, and you have quite a lot. And watching that video actually inspired me to redo my Book of Shadows, and kind of mess with it a little bit in that same way. And so I'll share with you just like one of the pages that I have of it. But it kind of just made me remind me of your thing. So it just has like a dedication and the divination page, and then it goes into a little bit more detail. But and then it just has like my front page, and then shout out to Joanna DeVoe. So it's cool. So you know, it made me feel like this is the direction I want to take it. I love that. You know, I resonate a lot too. And I know you just purchased one of the decks, which is the God, what is it? It's like it has the goddesses, but it depicted more in a Victorian aspect, and they're very soft and gentle.
Is it Nicoletta Ciccoli tarot with the little girls in it? Yeah, it's amazing.
Yeah. And so, you know, that old like vintage looks I'm resonating a lot with, like the old like gypsy images and stuff like that. And so it was pretty interesting. And then to see you, was that a stretch getting that deck? I remember you saying that you normally don't resonate with decks like that.
I don't know. Was it? I'm wondering if it is that one that I got, or if it's a different one that you mean. You know what I mean? I'm not.
Yeah.
I'm wondering if it is Nicoletta Ciccoli or if it's a different one, because I don't think I would have said that I didn't resonate with the Nicoletta Ciccoli deck. Oh, I know. Yeah, I think it might have been. I did say that I wasn't sure whether or not I wanted it, because not everything is numbered in it, and it's all a little bit like weird and winding and confusing. But I like to push my comfort zone now that I collect decks, and that's actually something that is really interesting to talk about when you're thinking about art, because the way that people resonate with different decks, and the way like one person will love something and they'll rave about it, and then you'll see it and you'll be like, you couldn't pay me to use that deck, I don't resonate with it at all. And somebody else will be like, it's the only deck I use now, and you'll be like, why? And so like it gets a bit like so subjective what actually speaks to you. And that's why, thank God, there's so many people creating decks now, because we've got as many tastes as we have artists and more.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so I quite like experimenting with different imagery now, for definite. I mean, there has to be a pull, there has to be a draw, but I like to collect different kinds now, for definite. And I also, to be honest with you, I call it the Instagram factor. And again, it's going back to aesthetics. It's literally like, what does it look like? That if I created some sort of sexy occult image with like feathers and stuff, and would I put this card on my altar so that it looked extremely Badman and witchy? Like, is that, would I use it for that or not? And to me, that's kind of part of it as well, the old Instagram factor. Like, what feeling does it generate in me? Does it make me feel like a powerful magician? That's what I want.
That's true. I mean, that's kind of how I very rarely purchase decks and oracles and stuff like that. At the beginning I purchased a lot of angel decks, but I'm moving towards more of a different kind of imagery. So I'm very, very picky, and I'm very analytical of it. And I'm like, nope, that there's 2 cards in there that I don't want, so I'm not going to get the deck, kind of thing. And you're right. Like, I've seen a bunch of reviews. Amazon and then YouTube are my 2 go-to. I won't purchase something without going and seeing someone's reviews of it. And you're right. You see someone that keeps talking about this deck, and you go and you watch the reviews, and they show you all the cards. I'm like, that deck is terrible. It won't, well, I don't want to be mean, but it won't work for me. And so it's interesting.
Yeah, absolutely.
So,
it's interesting to see like what floats people's boats, but I'm repelled by some decks that are hugely loved, and then I adore some decks that no one really gets. And I think it's really exciting and interesting that.
I agree. So when you're in talking of like tarot, do you resonate more with just like sometimes some of the decks are just random, they really don't have anything to it, or do you resonate more with the deep symbolism that has a lot of like the aspects of the original tarot, and they have, you know, the ones that are really, really busy with so much symbolism? Or do you like more of the simplistic kind of, you leave it to your imagination to interpret what it means kind of decks?
Yeah, I like decks that base themselves on the Rider-Waite imagery, but in terms of actual symbols in there, like alchemical symbols and like bits and pieces that you kind of like, you know, if you have any working knowledge of the occult, then you already can, you know that this means a certain thing. I don't really resonate with that because it takes away my ability to use my intuition and kind of go off the beaten track. I'm quite attracted to symbols. And when I see a symbol and I know a symbol, I bring up this Rolodex of information with regard to the symbol. Like I think a lot of people who study the occult and use symbols in witchcraft do. Like instantly you see something, you're like, I know that was used by the Golden Dawn and it means this, and it's alchemical, symbol is this. And then like it brings up this Rolodex of stuff that you don't need when you're trying to like help somebody to kind of forge a path in life. So yeah, I could do without the symbols, but I do like decks that stick to the Rider-Waite imagery. I equally like ones that stray from it completely though.
That's cool. Yeah, I think I tend to kind of go with the ones that don't have too much busyness to the images. That way it kind of just the image itself and maybe what the essence of the deck of the card is, and then I'll go ahead and helps me interpret. I normally tell people that I don't go based on what the cards are supposed to mean, but rather with the messages I'm getting and how I feel from them. That's usually how I go. I go more to like the intuitive side as well. In terms of the witchy part of it, and how do you use art in your witchy practice?
I've used it to cast spells. So instead of using words or designing a ritual, I will create an image. You could call it an elaborate sigil, and I put my intention into it, and then I destroy it. I've done that a few times. I think sigil magic, which you know, a lot of people create a sigil by writing down their intention, their magical intention, then they take out all the vowels in every second consonant, and then they make an image out of what's left. I don't do that. I like to make a collage that kind of expresses my desire, and I think only of that desire while I'm creating it. I go into a trance, and it's almost like an obsessed, frenzied collage making expedition, and I end up with a sigil that is like packed full of my intention, and I use that, I kind of, you know, I use that to set my intention and then to kind of send my intention out into the universe, if you will. So I've done that. As I said, I've used art for astral travel. I've also used art in a crafting sense. I've used it to make spiritual jewelry or to make prayer beads that I then use. I think this is something that a lot of witches do. I've also I've stitched sigils to the inside of my clothes. I've sewn sigils and symbols onto clothes that I only wear during ritual. I don't do this anymore. I just do ritual in this nowadays. But like back in the day, I would have like my long cape with all the runes and the swirling like material paint on them and stuff, and I'd get really into it, kind of thing. I mean, now, like, honestly, I do ritual in my tracksuit now. It's not even funny. But you got to try different things, haven't you? You got to try different things. So yeah, I've done that. I've made a lot of things for my craft. I think a lot of people would say the same. So many witches like use their craftiness, or their, like, you know, they create statuettes of their goddesses or paintings of their goddesses. I have tried to paint my goddess, and it is an insult to her. Like, I just cannot. I just can't. I can feel her, like she's trying to get a direct line to me from Helheim, like, honey, no, burn it, burn it. No. It's terrible. I'm really bad at it.
And I think that's a good point, because I've noticed that a lot of witches now have adopted some kind of like a creative aspect, like a channel almost of things that they're really good at. And before we kind of struggled in finding, like, I need to find information, like, you know, where's all these witches at? You know, I need to find someone that's good at kind of what I do. Now there's such a broad, so many people are doing so many different things. And so it does kind of creatively, there's so many people that you could go with. And so having people that are able to self-express themselves and kind of put themselves out there is needed, I think, at that time, because I like to create things. I hardly buy things, in the sense, I know that it kind of looks like a hoarder in the background, a witchy hoarder, but if I could make it, then I'll make it. If I can't, then I'll buy it. And so I always go to YouTube first to see someone create it, and then I'll try to see if it's realistically you know, easy for me to go ahead and go buy, like, the crystal, the beads and stuff like that, and make it, and then I'll make it. And I think that for me tends to be my witchy practice in the actual craft. And so when people say, you know, oh, what do you do in the craft? I'm like, the craft, I craft. that's what it,
Yeah.
the word craft means. I craft. I use my hands a lot. And I know that you kind of just mentioned right now that you just kind of would wear what you're wearing to do ritual. And so I feel like for you, you're just a physical manifestation of self-expression through art, through clothing. I don't know if you've been told, but you're kind of like a witchy style icon for this generation. So I made it.
Finally.
So see your glass award in the mail.
That's awesome. Well, now that my ambition has finally been reached and someone's told me that, I can shut down my business and stop making videos and all the rest of it. I can retire now, hun, because that's all I wanted. Thank you so much. That's awesome. That makes me really happy. I really believe in enclosed cognition. I believe that when you dress a certain way, certain emotions come over you. I believe that you should dress for the job that you want to do. I believe you should dress for how you want to feel. And you know, and I like my inner child and my inner artist to be happy with what I'm wearing. I love nothing more than throwing my wardrobe open and just creating a look. And, like, basically I'll ask my inner child to kind of put a tick against it before I leave the house. If it's not fun enough, then I've got necklaces with teddy bears on them and stuff. I can, like, take it up a notch. As long as she's happy, then I can go about my business.
I love that, because I'll see some of your videos and your outfits, and they're so intricate and different. You have a very interesting gift being able to mix match patterns and make them really work. And I'm like, you know, she's a walking collage. She's her own collage in the sense. And so, because you take different objects and shapes and you know, things that are not necessarily normal, and it all works together in a very cool way. And you know, even I'll be like, she's wearing that outfit as she's walking through that graveyard or that church, and she's like owning it. And I'm like, you know.
Oh yeah, I do own it. Yeah, I like to I like to encourage other people to own it as well, like, because so many people have spent so long thinking they can't wear what they want, and it's just like, no, that's tragic. Do it, and definitely do it in the circle, if nowhere else, because, you know, you're like, it changes your vibration, doesn't it? I know you know what I mean, because you're fly. Like, in the pictures that I put on the interview that I did of you, I was like, here's one tasty dish. Like, and my boyfriend said the same. So yeah, like, no, you're fly, so you know what I mean. Like, if you dress a certain way, you feel a certain way, and that's so important with magic, is to begin, like, put yourself in the ritual mindset immediately by making yourself feel like a stone cold fox, and then everything's going to go better from that moment.
Yeah, I agree. And I know you not recently, but a while back, you released I think it was a blog about self-expression through your clothing. I think you did. And so when I read that, I was just like, I opened my closet and be like, this doesn't express who I am. This doesn't express who I am, and start taking things out. And then I kind of shows, like, these are the items that make me feel authentic. And so the next time I look at clothing, it changed my perspective of, you know, for me, is this expressing who I am? And if it's not, if it's, you know, gonna make me feel like accepted to fit in like in a certain group, then I won't get it. Does that make sense? It's almost
Absolutely.
like I don't want to crazy, you know, if I feel like wearing this hot pink shirt, it's going to make me happy and I'm going to get it. You know, it was interesting. So in terms of self-expression, that's the ultimate self-expression moment, is allowing yourself to express yourself through your clothing. And because that's the one thing that a lot of people see before they see any of your artwork, any of that kind of stuff. So I love that.
Exactly. And so, it's what people see of you first, isn't it? Kind of thing.
Correct. Yeah, I agree. One of the other things I wanted to ask you is, I know that you've been working on your own deck. And so how has that process either enhanced or took you out of your practice, or is it just a mixture of everything?
Well, I started making an oracle deck that just came out of me really spontaneously, that I used collage and mixed media and stuff. It was never intended to be kind of to produce it and sell it. It was just for me. But I showed some photos of it last year on Facebook, and people were like, it looks really, really good, like nuts. It looks nuts. And I've tried using it. I've used it for clients. I've gotten their permission prior. I've just been like every so often. So I have this oracle deck I'm working on. It's already like 55 cards. Can I use it? And they're like, yeah, no, it's fine. You go about your bad self, you crazy girl. It's fine. But yeah, like I love it, and I think I will use it for myself. I think once it's totally complete, I'm not sure when I will feel that it is complete, but once it's complete, it'll be down the side of my altar. What it's taught me is, first of all, that I don't think I could ever, at the moment, I don't think that creating a tarot deck would be for me, because the structure is so rigid. And I know, like, you're making a deck at the moment and you've got a deck for sale, and I hugely respect people that follow the tarot format and use their art in that way, because you are following a strict formula. You are following and adhering to a well-respected and well-used structure, and I really struggle to do that. Like, I really am such a I can't tie myself down. So for me, what it's helped me to learn is that it's a really nice creative expression for me, but it's kind of shown me that I like to create art spontaneously, and I don't like to, in a very kind of anti-hierophant type way, I don't like to be told what to do. I think people that use their art in the service of the tarot structure, which for me is one of the most holy in the known world, there's nothing better than that. There's nothing smarter and cooler than that. So thanks.
Yeah.
So cool.
You're welcome.
Thanks to you and all your kind.
And one of the things that I know for me, when I work on my art and I paint and draw, we talked about it a little bit early before the call, is I feel like I'm not really there. I'm just kind of channeling something. And I mentioned before in other interviews and stuff like that, that it's almost like my soul takes over. And when I see the finished product, that's my soul's voice. And so that channel allows my soul to speak into paper. And so whether that be in poetry, writing, or creating something, I feel like that's my higher self coming and letting me know a message, or just coming to say hi and see whatever that looked like and providing me that message. And so usually when I do that, I tend not to have too many other distractions. It's almost like it's a blank piece of paper, and then myself, and then just respect around, and then just go to work kind of thing. And I know when we were talking about with your collage work and all that stuff, and it's almost like a ritual, and it's a process, and you know, it's pretty cool. I mean, it's like I said, it's a ritual in a sense. I mean, it's almost like a mad respect. And so when depicting like a goddess, and you're just like, oh, I'm offending someone, I'm gonna stop now.
I know that I need to collage her, and I will get around to that. That's what I'm actually going to do. Painting her, no. It's like, honest to God, both. You literally, I wouldn't show you, but I just wouldn't show you. I wouldn't want you to see Erick. I'd be like, don't show Erick. He's actually a real artist. Don't show Erick. God.
Oh my God, stop it.
Yeah, no, I had to get rid of it. It was awful. But yeah, I totally relate to you about the trance thing, and the fact that it shows you layers of yourself that you're just not consciously aware of. Even if you're not striving for that, you see it and you're like, oh, that's how I feel about that. Okay, like that's interesting. Maybe I should hash that out in shadow work, or whatever. And it's like, if you are truly in the business of self-inquiry, which I know you are and I know I am, then what could be more magical than using art for that purpose,
I agree. I definitely agree. I know we kind of wanted to keep it at 30 minutes, so we're kind of at the 30-minute mark. And so any last little nuggets of wisdom for art in a witchy perspective that you wanted to give out?
Yeah, definitely. I would say, if you have struggled with astral travel before, if you have kind of like tried it and you've tried to, you've done this thing that it says in a book about visualizing a door and all that kind of thing, it doesn't work for you, do yourself a favor, have a look at some landscape painting, open a magazine, look at some pictures in magazines. There are so many like sexy fashion / lifestyle weird art magazines. They're digital photography magazines. Like, you can go to an art gallery, you can sit down on a bench opposite a painting in an art gallery, no one will disturb you. Like, try and project into the painting. You don't need to draw sacred space for it or any of that. Just try and imagine going into the painting. And as you said, like, challenge yourself with the corners. That's the really exciting thing about it. Like, right, okay, what's behind that house? Like, what's behind that thing? And see if you can lose yourself in that way. Because as a child, people, we did that. We all did that. And that's what it's about getting back to. So I would definitely say my parting gift to people would be, if you've tried astral travel or you've tried trance work and you can't seem to lose yourself and you can't seem to get to that next stage. Somebody asked me yesterday on Facebook, I don't want to take hallucinogenic drugs, but I want to go to the next level. How do I do it? I was like, Pickle, you do not need drugs. Like, you don't. Yet there's so many ways to get to that next level. And I would say that using art instead of trying to visualize something in your mind's eye can be the breakthrough moment for people who've tried to like visualize and can't do it, and they're just like, what the hell, how do I do it? Use paintings, use photographs, use that stuff. That's what I would say. What about you? What's your parting gift?
Well, I'm gonna end up writing my name on your name tag on that gift. It's gonna be from Kelly-Ann and Erick Silvermoon.
Yeah, because me and you, I can't believe I know someone else that was like, I can be in a painting. That literally.
So I would say
that's me.
Hands down, that's the best way to do that, because if you look at, because a lot of people don't resonate with certain images, so if you look at something and it provokes something or you feel resistant, tap into that resistance. So if you feel anger out of looking at something, tap into that anger, because there's something there. I mean, the painting did its job. It provoked a feeling out of you, and so don't discourage it, tap into it, and so like when you say like museum or stuff like that, it's a very quiet already kind of sacred space that you could stare at a painting for 2 hours and no one would think anything else. They'll just be like, this person's in the painting. They already expect people to get lost in the paintings. So I mean, I think that's a very great way to nourish your soul, to tap into your inner child, because I think any spiritual development, any spiritual courses that you want requires that inner child work. So like I said earlier, it's a quicker way to get there. And if you haven't seen the movie Witches with Angelica Houston and Bubbles from Absolutely Fabulous, you need to go and buy it, because it is so good. It is absolutely amazing. And so I love it. So Kelly-Ann, thank you so much for being awesome and authentically you.
Thank you so much for doing the same, darling. I love talking to you. I could do it every day for the rest of my life and never get bored.
Okay, good. So we'll meet tomorrow at the same time.
Every day, sweetie, no problem.
Every day. Thank you so much for everyone that has been joining us live and those that are going to view us later in my channel. Thank you so much for your love and support. And, look for Kelly-Ann at thefourqueens.com. I know she's releasing her Self-Love September, which I was so honored to be able to view it last year, and so I'm excited to see the little changes and the little nuances that she's doing this year with the Self-Love September. So I know that you have a special tab now on your website, thefourqueens.com, that says Self-Love September. So for those that I'll put a link to this video so that you guys could go ahead and look into that. So thank you guys so much. Blessed be.
Thank you. Bye.